Hello and welcome, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the topic of glutathione because this seems to be a topic of conversation these days. In fact, it's been a topic of conversation, for the last 25 or 30 years. I've just been hearing about this topic on and off for quite some time. Generally, what I've been hearing is that people say that plant foods are not a reliable source of glutathione. Now, there's a lot that we need to address when it comes to that very question, which we're going to talk about in this video today. Specifically, a lot of the lesser known information about glutathione that I thought that you'd be really interested in hearing. So let's get started. First of all, what is glutathione? It's an antioxidant. It's a very important antioxidant, and it's made by our body. Now, glutathione is well known for neutralizing certain types of free radicals, specifically reactive oxygen species, so oxygen-based free radicals. Like I said, glutathione is made by our body, but it's also found in food. And we're going to address this question today as to how much glutathione is found in different food sources and if that glutathione is actually even absorbable, because that's a really important consideration here. Now, glutathione, if we look at it kind of like on a microscopic level, it's actually a protein molecule. It's made up of three well-known proteins, glutamine, cysteine, and glycine. And we'll talk about those individually in just a couple minutes. Now, as far as food sources of glutathione goes, I'd like to show you the glutathione content of a variety of different plant foods, because people say that you don't find glutathione in plant foods. Is that actually true? Well, if we take a look at this table up here, we see that it's quite true that you can find glutathione in plant foods. In fact, two of the richest sources of glutathione in plant foods would include avocado and asparagus. Walnuts are pretty good too, potatoes, spinach, acorn squash, and then a variety of other ones as well can be considered sources of glutathione too. Now, if we compare the amount of glutathione in these plant foods to what we find in animal foods, we see that the richest sources of glutathione in animal foods would include pork chops, ham, hamburger, and those actually contain less glutathione than avocado and asparagus. Now, one thing I'd like to say about this table here before we go on is that in this one particular study, there were the two different types of glutathione that were measured here. So I just wanted to show you that in case you had a question about that. So once again, as we can see, pork chops, ham, and hamburger, which are the richest sources of glutathione, are actually lower in glutathione than the two plant-based sources at the top here, asparagus and avocado. And then underneath that would be walnuts and potatoes. And then two other popular animal foods here, steak, chicken breast, are even lower than walnuts and potatoes. And this is measured in milligrams per 100 grams. Now, what about some of the other animal foods? Where do those stand? Not all animal foods are going to be rich in glutathione. For example, we've got tuna and water here. That's a lot lower than a lot of these other plant foods that we've examined here. Chicken eggs, whole milk, butter, and plain yogurt actually don't contain any glutathione at all. Now, it's really interesting to talk about the food sources of glutathione individually, but what about when we add them up into recipes or in the amounts that people actually eat? What does the glutathione content look like then? So let's take a look. First of all, hamburger is really popular. So what I'd like to do is look at a 4-ounce patty of hamburger, which has 288 calories. The amount of glutathione that we see in here of GSH1 is almost 20 milligrams, and then regular GSH here is a little bit over 13 milligrams. Okay, so that's what we're seeing in 288 calories. In other words, a 4-ounce patty of hamburger. I wanted to make a quick clarification here. that when we're talking about 4 ounces of hamburger, we're specifically talking about the patty by itself. That doesn't include the French fries or the bun or the soda or anything else that's pictured right here in this picture. When I'm talking about 4 ounces of hamburger, I'm specifically talking about the patty by itself. So 288 calories for 4 ounces of a hamburger patty. Now, how is that going to compare to a similar number of calories of some of the plant foods that we looked at? Let's take a look. So for comparison, what we're going to do is we're going to make a smoothie. Orange, banana, and strawberry. And we're also going to add some cauliflower to that. I know a lot of people don't eat cauliflower smoothies, but one of the reasons why I put some cauliflower in this smoothie is because in general, when you have a fruit smoothie, people tend to put leafy greens in there. But there wasn't any kale or dandelion greens that I like to have. So I actually have put cauliflower in my smoothie before. It actually tastes pretty good. But I just wanted to show you, for comparison here, the hamburger patty was 288 calories. And for this smoothie here, we've got 278 calories. So how much glutathione did we find in this smoothie? What we found was almost 25 milligrams of GSH1. And then for GSH here, it's a little bit over 18. And that is more than what we found in the isocaloric, or should I say almost the same, number of calories worth of hamburger. Now, I also wanted to include another green smoothie in here, spinach, instead of cauliflower, because some people actually do put spinach into their green smoothies. I don't usually do that, and the reason why is because I just like to go with lower oxalate foods in general, and spinach is very well known for being pretty high in oxalate, so I minimize that in my diet. But just for comparison here, spinach actually tends to be pretty high in glutathione. So if we look at a 277 calorie amount of this green smoothie, what we find is for GSH1, a little bit over 27 milligrams. And then for GSH, we've got almost 23 milligrams. So that's the highest that we've seen so far. Let's look at all of them for comparison here. So for a similar number of calories, as you can see here, with the hamburger, 288 calories, 278 for our smoothie number 1 here, and then for smoothie number 2, 277 calories. As you can see, the plant food smoothies are actually higher in glutathione than the hamburger. Okay, so similar number of calories, and what we're looking at here is that the plant foods are actually higher in both forms of glutathione. Very interesting. But the plot thickens. Okay, so even though people talk about animal foods or trying to say that animal foods are higher in glutathione, as we could see per calorie, that's not always the case. But despite all of this information that people tend to debate about, the glutathione content of food is, by researchers, oftentimes seen as not important, given that glutathione from food is not as easily absorbed or is not absorbed in significant amounts in our digestive tract. And this is true for both animal and plant foods. Okay, so less than 10% of the glutathione from foods is actually absorbed intact. All right, so even though there's this debate over the amount of glutathione in animal and plant foods, it's almost like it doesn't really matter because we don't absorb all that much of it to begin with. So just wanted to share that with you so we could sort of quell that debate. Now, what about glutathione supplements? Actual true glutathione supplements are not well absorbed either. Let's take a look at why. Since glutathione is a protein, and as I mentioned before, glutathione is a protein that's made up of 3 amino acids, glutamine, cysteine, and glycine. Because it's a protein, it is broken down by the protein digesting enzymes in our digestive tract. That makes total sense. So essentially what happens is when we consume foods that have glutathione or a glutathione supplement or what have you, what's going to happen is that our digestive tract is going to break down that glutathione into its constituent amino acids, glutamine, cysteine, and glycine. So in a situation like this, what can one actually do? It's a good question. The good news is our body actually makes glutathione. And as I mentioned a couple of times now, glutathione is made from glutamine, cysteine, and glycine. And so what happens is that in our digestive tract, those 3 amino acids can be absorbed intact, and then they can go to the liver or they can be sent out to our different individual cells, and those amino acids can be reassembled as glutathione. Because in individual cells and in our liver, those 3 amino acids can be used to create glutathione. Now, a couple interesting things to be aware of. The amino acids glutamine and glycine are not considered to be essential amino acids because they can be easily made by our body. Now, on the other hand, cysteine is considered also to be a non-essential amino acid, but it is made from an essential amino acid called methionine. So a lot of the researchers are saying these days that cysteine can be limiting to glutathione production in our cells and in our liver. So we want to make sure that we have a good source of methionine in order to make sure that we're going to have all of the constituents, the glutamine, the cysteine, and the glycine, to be able to make glutathione. And this is one of the reasons why it's so important to get enough protein. And this is true for anybody on any type of dietary approach. You got to make sure you get enough protein. Sometimes protein, the conversation about it can go like either way. Some people are not worried about it, and other people are extremely concerned about it. And what it comes down to is you just want to make sure that you're getting enough protein so that you have all of the important amino acids to make glutathione and all the other important proteins that need to be made in our body. Now, everything that we've talked about so far kind of leads us to where we are right now. Now, this doesn't mean that glutathione that's found in foods is irrelevant, because I hear people talking about this too. Oh, well, because we can't absorb glutathione from foods, well, then the whole conversation is irrelevant. Well, that's not exactly true. It's actually quite important, regardless of what is being said. And the reason why is because glutamine, cysteine, and glycine, resulting from the digestion of glutathione, can be absorbed and then, like I said, reassembled on the other side. In other words, when glutathione is digested and broken down into glutamine, cysteine, and glycine, those amino acids, like I said, can be absorbed and then reassembled in our individual cells and in our liver. And in addition to that, depending on the needs of the body, they might be assembled into different proteins. So yeah, the conversation about the food content of glutathione is not irrelevant. It's actually quite important. So what it comes down to is maximizing glutathione levels and focusing on methionine or cysteine intake is an important consideration here. It's important to make sure we're getting enough protein. In other words, it's important to get the DRI for protein, a dietary referenced intake, for methionine and all of the other essential amino acids, because a lot of the non-essential amino acids can be made from the essential ones. So we want to make sure that we have a full complement of the amino acids that we need in order to make glutathione and all the other proteins that our body makes. So I wanted to thank you for watching this video. If you found this information to be useful or interesting, please feel free to like and subscribe. And if you'd like to learn more about raw food plant-based nutrition, please feel free to go to our website, rawfoodeducation.com, and sign up for our email list where you will get regular mailings about topics like this.